While I know a lot of you guys have your eyes on Death Stranding as the next major PlayStation 4 exclusive, do not forget about Judgment. This is a game that I think is going to take a lot of people by surprise, and I think it's the game to take this style of game to the next level and really open up to a mainstream Western audience. It's out very soon, and in today's video, I want to take a look at 12 huge things that you need to know before you buy Judgment, and a lot of you guys are probably still a little bit skeptical on whether or not you want to buy Judgment. Let me answer that question right away. Probably buy the game. I'm expecting it to be very good, but nonetheless, let's give you guys a little bit of a rundown of what the game is going to entail. Kicking things off with number one, I always like to give you guys a little bit of a background on the studio working on these games, and it's very interesting with Judgment because it is being created by the Yakuza studio and Ryuga Gotoku studio. If you guys have played Yakuza in the past, you know how talented this studio is, but for a long time, the Yakuza titles had a hard time resonating over here in the States, but that's changed in recent years, based on Sega being more committed to Yakuza as a franchise. However, there still are a couple of elements that held the series back in terms of garnering mainstream Western recognition. However, I really do believe that's changing with Judgment, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But just a little bit about Ryuga. Continuing in the tradition of the Yakuza series, Ryuga and its director Toshihiro Nagoshi set out to create Judgment under the same philosophy of creating games for mature audiences, and you'll notice that Judgment, if you look at the background of the story, which we'll get into in a little bit, this is a game that is being catered towards mature audiences and those of you that like a very gritty story. The result here is the work of over 3 years in crafting its central story and an evolution of gameplay mechanics tested, scrutinized, and refined. The entire team is confident that Judgment is some of their best work to date. Number two, so let's give you guys some clarity on what exactly Judgment is. If you're familiar with the Yakuza games, it's gonna follow in a lot of those elements. However, Judgment itself is an action-adventure game played from a third-person perspective. The game itself is a legal thriller set in the world of Yakuza and follows private detective Takayuki Yagami as he investigates a serial murder case. It stars Japanese actor Takuya Kimura and employs a fighting system similar to that of Yakuza 0, where players can change into different styles. Additionally, the game features an investigation mode where the player must find traces of the criminal. When asked about similarities regarding both franchises, creator Nagoshi stated that the location and assets might be the same, but the gameplay and story here are drastically different. So yes, while there are going to be a lot of comparisons drawn to Yakuza, know that Judgment is its own creation, and it's trying to reinvent the wheel in terms of what the studio has done in the past. Alright, moving on to number three, the story is going to be an integral element of Judgment, so let's give you a little bit of a background on it. A lawyer pulls off a miracle only to have the verdict cost him everything. Now as a string of murders cast a shroud over the city and the law begins to fail, justice cannot afford to be blind. The son of a murdered lawyer, Takayuki Yagami, was raised on the streets by a Yakuza patriarch who paves the way for Yagami to follow in his real father's footsteps. Taking a job at the Genda law office, Yagami accepts a high-profile case, proving Shinpei Okubo, a man suspected of murder, innocent. Against all odds, Yagami succeeds and is hailed as a hero, but his prolific career is short-lived. Only months later, Okubo brutally murders his girlfriend, stabbing her over 10 times with a kitchen knife before setting their apartment on fire. Yagami becomes the lawyer who let a murderer walk, and everything he had worked for comes crashing down. The game itself takes place 3 years after those events, and Yagami is taken off his lawyer's badge to run a small detective agency in the red light district, scraping by on odd jobs and evidence collection. But even a city as seedy as this, shaken by a string of serial murders where the victims' bodies are discovered with their eyes gouged out, Yagami is drawn into the case by his old law firm, where he discovers that in order to bring this killer to light, he must seek out the truth that slipped from his grasp 3 years ago. So everything is connected here, but can a man haunted by his failures prevail over his past? So you notice that there's a lot of layers to this story, and it seems very intricate in terms of story development. The main character in Takayuki has a lot of layers to himself as well, and he has to battle these demons of fighting what he did 3 years ago, letting this murderer walk, but also finding Judgment. So it's this clash of morals that I think is going to create an incredibly compelling story, and you see that just based on the general description that I offered you guys. Alright, number four, let's talk a little bit about Takayuki Yagami. As the main character of the game, he's gonna offer a lot to get into, and he's a fiercely idealistic ex-defense lawyer turned private detective. After facing a devastating betrayal by one of his former clients, he became known as this fraud who lets murderers run free. Even though he had nothing to do with it, at least that is the indication that we're given, his reputation is completely destroyed, effectively destroying his career for the time being. Now he's caught up in an enigmatic serial murderer case and will need to push his investigative skills to their absolute limit to solve it, and that's up to you to actually push forward through the game and find everything wrong. There's going to be a lot of mystery, and Takayuki is going to be at the center of everything. And again, as you hear more about the game, hopefully you can hear this compelling story come together. Alright, number 5. While the story is incredibly compelling, there's a lot of game content to go into as well. As a detective, Yagami is often bested by the thugs and lowlifes of the city, but you'll need more than his brawling skills to get to the bottom of this case. You'll need to interrogate, discover, and present evidence, tail and chase suspects, don disguises, pick locks, and take pictures to unravel the mystery. Yes, there is going to be a lot of stealth elements, and getting from point A to point B in the most strategic way possible is a big element of this game. And strategy in general. Again, you are a detective, and solving this mystery is at the core of Judgment. Number 6, of course, being from the Yakuza developers, combat is going to be a big element of the game, and the fighting system is vastly improved from past Yakuza titles. Like Yakuza 0, however, you can choose different combat styles to switch to on the fly. As a private detective in one of Japan's rowdiest districts, Yagami occasionally needs to get a little rough in his investigation. So no, he's not just gonna be a casual investigator that's not gonna get into trouble. There's gonna be a lot of trouble in this game. He's a self-trained martial artist and can freely switch between two unique styles, Tiger and Crane, to take down individual punks or massive groups of thugs. He's also a master of street weaponry. From a humble pair of chopsticks to the Kamurocho's brawler's weapon of choice, the mighty bicycle. Armed with a massive repertoire of X-action finishing moves, Yagami might be the most dangerous former lawyer in all of Japan. Yes, you don't generally see badass lawyers, but Takayuki Yagami is definitely one, and the combat is a central focus of Judgment's gameplay. Number 7, here we go back and we draw comparisons to Yakuza, but just like the Yakuza games, there will be a ton of side content for you to do. Yes, the main story is gonna be the main thing you're gonna be obsessed with, but there's gonna be a lot of distractions in the world as well. It's gonna offer tons of hours of extra content if you ever feel like diverging from the main story. Generally speaking, Yakuza is a content-filled game, and expect something very similar out of Judgment. You're going to be able to spend a lot of time in this game if you so please. If you want to go for that platinum trophy, you're going to be investing a lot of time, so just bear that in mind. But if you do just want to naturally go through the story, you can have a more concise experience that way, but the game will be incredibly plentiful when it comes to content. Number 8, one of the big elements of Judgment that I think is going to put it over the top compared to Yakuza, and some of you guys have gotten mad when I brought this up in the past, but Yakuza, from a technical standpoint, yes, those are visually pleasing games. However, they're not at the level of some of the best PS4 games out today. In the case of Judgment, technically speaking, it is on another level compared to like Yakuza 6. Visually, it looks fantastic, and it's created in the studio's Dragon engine, and the world has never looked so appealing. Utilizing deeper color tones, shading, and an attention to even the smallest details, Judgment comes to life like no title before. From a visual standpoint, it is on another level compared to the Yakuza games, and that's a big element. I know a lot of you guys will say graphics don't matter, but catering to that more mainstream Western audience when they have been acclimated to games such as Marvel, Spider-Man, God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, these incredibly visually appealing games, you don't have to be at that level per se, but you do need to offer some sort of visual fidelity that is going to engage a more mainstream audience, and I think they definitely deliver that with Judgment. Number 9, again, presentation extends far beyond just the visuals. The music is a big element as well, and Judgment is going to have some great music. If you watch some of the trailers, you know the music is great. And the original theme of the game and ending songs are done by the Japanese rock band in Alexandros. The theme song is called Arpeggio, and the ending song is called Your Song. The music is great. If you just want to go back and check out some of the older trailers, the music definitely does the game justice, and it really gives you that vibe of you trying to come back from the bottom and trying to reclaim your honor. And that's an integral story point as well, as we mentioned earlier. Number 10, now this is an element that is gonna turn off some people. However, they're offering you options, but I think it's so important of the fact that Judgment is offering both full English dub and full support for dual audio. Now, to some of you guys, you might have watched the English dub trailer and you were completely turned off by it. However, it is paramount, again, to resonate with that mainstream Western audience that you offer English voiceovers. I myself can get by with the Japanese voiceovers and English subtitles. Honestly, that's probably how I would prefer to play the game, just because to my eyes and ears, the English voiceovers don't really do the world and the storytelling justice. However, for a lot of people, they're gonna want those English voiceovers, and they might completely turn off to a game that only offers Japanese voiceovers. You have to keep that in mind, and Sega kept that in mind, and also kept in mind that some of you guys are gonna want Japanese voiceovers, so they're giving you options, and that's great. Again, paired with the visual fidelity, paired with everything they're doing with this game, I think the game is primed to resonate at a higher level than the Yakuza games ever did in the past, and having full English dub is one of those elements that I do think is going to take the game to the next level, even though I've been hearing so many people complain about the English voiceover and whatever the case may be. Sure, it might not be for you, but think about the person that never played the Yakuza games. Think about the person that is trying out Judgment for the first time. English voiceovers is a big deal in that regard. Alright, next up, number 11. Now, Judgment was a game that was riddled in a lot of controversy. Thankfully, all of that controversy has been remedied, but Sega actually had to wipe one of the actors in the game, and Pierre Taki, from its video game Judgment, replacing his voice and likeness with that of a new performer, and this is all coming from videos that they've released in the game. Taki was previously the basis for the character Kohei Hamura, but they had to update the game and change his character based on some stuff that happened. Taki's removal from Judgment comes due to a suspicion of drug use in March, and he was actually arrested. Now, for some of you guys, you're not going to see that as a big deal. However, customs in Japan are much different than customs over here in the West. Obviously, being arrested is not a great thing, but drug use in Japan is a much bigger deal than drug use over here. And according to police, Taki actually tested positive for cocaine based on a urine test, and possession or use of cocaine carries a prison sentence of up to 7 years in Japan, but such an arrest can also effectively end an artist's career overseas. So it's a disappointing turn of events. Thankfully, they got everything remedied, and the game is still going to come out for a little bit. I was worried that the game was going to be canceled for a Western release altogether. They actually had to pull the game from being sold in Japan for a little bit, but thankfully, again, everything got remedied, and the game is good to go. Just one character's design has been altered a little bit. And lastly, number 12, when are you going to be able to play Judgment? Well, Judgment is going to come out exclusively to the PlayStation 4 on June 25th. Now, while it is a launch exclusive to the PlayStation 4, I do imagine that it can transition into other platforms sometime in the future. The PC has been getting a lot of the Yakuza games, so I wouldn't be all too surprised if Judgment comes to PC sometime down the line, but as far as the initial release, it's coming exclusively to the PS4 on June 25th. And that is the entire rundown of Judgment. I know this is a game that a lot of you guys are still a little bit unfamiliar with, but it's coming out in a time period where not a lot of other major games are coming out, so if you do have the time, if you do have the extra money, do give Judgment a look. I think it could end up surprising a lot of you guys. So that's gonna conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.